I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
Welcome back to Timo's Dinky Detailing. So today I'm going to be doing a London double-decker bus. This is part 2 of the bus that I did a couple weeks ago. This is how it began, and after the first restoration it came to the original look, which is this look. It's a two-tone bus. I was told by somebody who was asking about it when I got this bus and some other toys, and I got asked for some advice, and somebody told me that all of the buses in London area were red from top to bottom, and the ones in the suburbs were green, and other cities had different colors of buses. I'm presuming this was a London bus. I think it looks prettier with the yellow, even if they didn't really have these two-tone buses, but they did have buses that had lighter tone, like a yellow tone, around the windows. And so what I'm going to do is I want to take us to the next level and make this bus into the pre-war bus that it really is, or it really was. And that means adding all the decorations and all the improvements like I normally do for many of these toys. So I took the screw off, and it was a bit hard getting the body off of the chassis because the paint was still not completely dry, and it kind of glued itself to the other parts of the body. But anyway, it came off. And now taping it up, I'm leaving the windows covered and paint the rest of it red. So then taking the tape off, you get this, still it's a two-tone effect, but this actually looks, and there's a stripe. You can see that yellow stripe. This is actually on the buses that I can find in the images of pre-war double-decker buses. And that's my aims, because this bus, as I told you before, is the first. These buses were made by Dinky for many, many years until the late 50s, but they started in 1939, and this one I discovered is a 1939 release, so it's from the very first batch. Because of the front fenders, you can identify it. So being 1939, well, that's how you got that intro of the beginning of the war with Neville Chamberlain. Now I realized after doing the first restoration that a piece of the body was missing under the front grille, because I went through a lot of pictures looking up what this bus should look like. And so I have to repair this. So it's done after it's been painted, which is not the greatest. Maybe I should have stripped all the paint and started from scratch, but I didn't. I tried to minimize the work. And so it's not optimal because I've already got a coat of paint, and it's going to be actually slightly different, and it means it's extra coats of paint. So I'm going to live with that because I didn't want to make this a complete total restoration from the beginning. I thought I'd just work with what I already had. So you can see I supported that little piece of polystyrene with tape, and then trying to get it off is not the most convenient. So I got these tiny little scissors, and I think, well, maybe work better the other way around. And that got most of the tape off. Actually, I think I peeled the rest of it off anyway. And then I smooth it out so it's going to match the body. Now, on these buses, I noticed all the fenders were black, and then there's also the black chassis, just as the model is built, was also underneath the bodywork. So the model actually matches the construction style of the actual buses. So I had to get the black there, and I tried to leave the red in the middle. And I'm thinking I should have just taped up the cab and painted the whole thing blacks, because it wound up being a little bit of trouble later on. But anyway, it all works out in the end. I taped up the front fenders because the fenders are black, but the bodywork that they're attached to is red, so it's a bit of a trick there. So most of this job was doing the decorations. So this took a while because I had to put all these, I had to find proper stickers. Like I chose an Aldgate bus that I found, so I knew what the route was. I probably should have found one that was a route that went through Piccadilly Circus, but I didn't. So this is a bus that went astray and wound up at Piccadilly Circus. This is based on a photograph that I found on the internet, so that tells me that it's all, but the problem is it's a modern photograph of an old bus, so I'm not sure those routes actually match 1939. In fact, they probably don't. Now all these advertisements that I put on here are actually from photos of different buses, and they're ads that I liked. Here I had trouble getting that decal on. It was stuck to my thumb, and I was able to place it pretty good. These little things, I couldn't tell what they said. I had to dig deep to find out what they actually said. So I found pictures that showed what they actually say, and some of them say different things. But this is authentic for some two different buses. But I figured if I didn't get the text right, it wouldn't look right. That's the fuel filler cap. So, of course, I had to do an interior, so I made up seats for the lower level and for the upper level. And interior, it's hard to see it, but the original ones were plaid, which I can't do, but I can make them red. They were all red plaid. And then this little silver thing is the little metal bar for keeping your balance as you're walking up the aisle. And you can see those two sideways seats are on top of the wheel wells. I had to look that up because I realized when I was making it, how do I go over the wheel well with those seats? And I looked up a picture and found out that they're sideways. So here's the circular staircase, and one of the iconic things, I have to put this staircase in to get to the second level because I needed to put in that bar, floor to ceiling bar that you would grab as you ran down the street and jump on the back of the bus. Now windows for this are pretty easy except for reaching inside like this because they're all flat. So I was able to do those very quickly and easily. Every window is flat, just glue it up against the side of the body. And there I put my seats in, and I just put a couple dabs of glue to hold it in place. Now this is the glue for the windows. You can see on the thing that there is glue holding those seats up. And this wraparound window worked out well. See, there you can see that bar is just an axle. It's a pop rivet, and it's free floating in there because I figured I'm not going to be able to perfectly match the height that it needs to be, so why don't I just have it free floating? And you'll see I'll fix it in place at the end. So here's the window going on the other side. Again, very simple. It's just flat. And then there's a window. This is actually the window on the interior. It looked kind of crazy the way this bus is. That's the interior window for the cab for the driver. Of course, if I had to put a seat for this driver, you can't do it because there's this big engine compartment in the way. I'm sure it's different on the actual bus because otherwise there's no place for the driver to sit. So here you can see the bottom of the lower seats and the opening for the wheel well. And it's a bit of a trick getting this in there. But once it's in, the glue is going to hold. I'm using Eileen's tacky glue. It's just hobby glue. But it's very good. It becomes tacky very quickly and it dries clear. It's a little bit yellowy if you have too much of it, but most of the time I'm just using a tiny bit. So this is my wheel making method using stainless steel tubing that I've shown you before, and I have a video about it. So basically I have this 2mm tubing which has a little bit thicker wall, and then to hold it, you could hold it in any kind of clamp, but I'm using this bench block for 5C collets They're lathe collets, and this is a block that you could clamp in a vise on a milling machine, so you could machine flats, for example, onto a round piece of stock. So I set the mark close to the collet spacer that I made in the 3D printer, and that goes into the collet block, and then it's got this tightening ring, which I tighten very lightly, just so that that tubing doesn't move. And then I use a cutoff wheel with the Dremel tool, and then I file the end off nice and square, and I've got my perfect axle. And for that, you'll see in a minute that I make a mushroom on the end out of a tiny nail, and I will include the links for those parts in the text below, so that you can find those parts yourself if you want to reproduce this method. You don't need to get the collet blocks or the collets. You can use almost any kind of clamp, as long as it doesn't clamp it so tight that it's going to squash that tubing. So that's the second axle. You can see I loosen that off, and I can take out the rest of that material for the next project. So here's what I do with the ends. I'm going through this process again, and I'll probably do it every time I make one of these models. So the tubing has a hole already in there. I used to drill a rivet to have that hole in the end. I thought maybe I can find some material that already has a hole in it all the way through, and that's what this is. And these little nails I also bought off of Amazon. They fit in perfectly, and the head of the nail is already like a dome. It already looks like a mushroom on the end of a Dinky axle. And this is for me the best way to do these things. I don't have to hammer away at the end of an axle on a toy that I just finished painstakingly painting and making look beautiful, and then I'm whacking a hammer right beside it. That never made me comfortable. So this is my ultimate solution. I think it's very, very good. Again, I'm using Eileen's glue. In the past, I would have used the 2-part epoxy, but it's not necessary. It doesn't need to be very strong. And this stuff, I can just squeeze some out of the bottle, and I don't have to mix anything. And it works quite well. So now the body comes onto the chassis. And all the decals that I've put on it are from photographs. I was thinking of making some fancy decals, and I said, no, you know what the main one is? I want them to be plain and kind of banal, because that's what most of them were. They were kind of plain. They're advertising detergent for the ladies riding on the bus. And I think that captures the spirit of the ads the best. There you can see I had that floating pop rivet and put some glue on the bottom, and it sits properly. Now, after I did all this, I found out from the photographs that the buses in 1939, and probably through the war, had the front fenders painted white, and then they had a big spot on the back. And I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but somebody would probably tell me, especially if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling these were painted white so that the bus, when it was under darkened war conditions, would be a little bit more visible on the road, because they did have originally just black fenders. And so the bright white on the front fenders, and then this big spot on the back, which you can see in the 1939 photo, all the buses had this big spot on the back, and they had the front fenders done. So here's how it started originally. Here's what it looked like when I started this project. And here's the final product, a 1939 London double-decker bus. I think it looks fantastic. I really enjoyed this project. And it was difficult getting all of those decals done and getting them onto the model properly, but I'm very pleased with the results, and I hope everybody here is as well. Maybe I've gone overboard with this one, but I really love it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky Detailing. Until next time, be seeing you.
That is the end of the Prime Minister's statement. Please stand by for the important government announcements, which, as the Prime Minister has said, will follow almost immediately. That is the end of the announcement.